to have those symbols and examples of heroism and strength. Today, as the Navy prioritizes readiness for the high-end fight against our near-peer competitors, remember that it's only possible because of those who gave their all so that we would have these freedoms today. Thank you.
Frequently, we'll see vets meeting and greeting other vets, and there's no introductions. We don't need introductions. Hey, brother, what'd you do? Hey, who you with? Hey, when were you there? It's a real team effort. And now, this team that this captain has got going for us makes, as a dad and now a papa, it makes me feel good that when my son or grandsons have to go, or my granddaughters for that matter, go in the military, that they're going to be well protected and well trained and safe, and they will come home. It's my privilege to reintroduce the Harmony Dolls singing a song we may have heard.
Chicago way. He had a boogie style that no one else could play. He was the top man of his craft. But then his number came up and he was gone for the draft. He's in the army now, a blowing reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. They really brought him down because he couldn't jam. The captains need to understand, because the next day the cap went out and drafted a band. And now the conga jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. A toot, delighted toot. He blows it into the bar. In boogie rhythm, he can't blow a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. He makes the company jump when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. He was some boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. And when he plays boogie woogie bugle, he is busy as a buzzy bee. And when he plays, he makes the company jump and into the bar. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. Toot, he blows it into the bar. He can't play a note unless the bass and guitar is playing with him. Yeah, he makes the company jump when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. Boogie every night and wakes them up the same way he'll be early right. They clap their hands and step their feet because they know how he plays when someone gives him the beat. He'll really race it up when he plays heavily. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B. Da 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 da. The company jumps when he plays reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy of Company B.
Ladies, thank you very, very much. It's now my real pleasure and honor to introduce Sue Bacon. She's the late Norcodian Club Foundation president and the daughter of Pearl Harbor survivor. Sue?
Good morning. On behalf of the Lake Norcodian Club Foundation, I would like to welcome all of you to the 13th annual Pearl Harbor Remembrance Ceremony. My name is Sue Bacon, and as introduced, I'm president of the Lake Norcodian Club Foundation. More importantly, I'm the daughter of Irving Franklin Bacon. He was a World War II Navy veteran. He was at Pearl Harbor, and he was decorated with a Purple Heart and Bronze Star. My father is no longer with us, but I will always be grateful to have been raised with a family, with a love of country, and to always honor our veterans. When we began the ceremony over a decade ago, it was not surprising that Norco and the surrounding communities had very little knowledge about the Lake Norcodian Club, the hotel's history. Now, how back in 1941, the Navy took a deserted and depressed resort of the 1920s and turned it around to be a naval hospital. How that naval hospital welcomed and treated and cared for those returning from Pearl Harbor. After all, that was 78 years ago. Sadly, a lot of our history is rarely being taught anymore. Our history is on its way out. It's being completely rewritten, forgotten, torn down, and worst of all, erased. Who will be there to tell the story, to describe the cost and the sacrifice that was made to keep this wonderful country safe? One only needs to look back to World War I, that war that was supposed to end all wars, to see that we did not learn. But we do need to remember. I still remember when I was graduating from high school. The Vietnam War was still being fought. That graduation day, the boys graduating were in uniform, or would soon be. There was no choice for them, for there was a draft. Tragically, there was also a loud war protest being fought at home. Those men returning from that war had little choice in fighting it, and they were not returned home to open arms and gratitude. Thankfully, we have a president and an administration that is turning that around. We need to remember. Today, it is being reported that many of our young Americans have the belief that this is not the greatest country. Thankfully, the young Americans that are standing before you today aren't part of that group. How could anyone choose to ignore or even forget the sacrifice of our soldiers, sailors, Marines, and yes, the civilian patriots? These men and women chose to put everything on the line for this country. The fight continues today, both overseas and at home. Such ignorance of our past and our history just is not acceptable. We need to remember. Today, this Naval Hospital Corona at Norco is being recommended by the state of California to be placed on the National Register of Historic Places. It needs to be. This Naval Hospital, where research on medical miracles were created and saved many lives. This place, through the game of basketball, allowed our disabled veterans in wheelchairs to be empowered again. And this place, where all colors and races were treated together for the first time in military history. We need to remember. Today, on this hallowed ground, let us take a stand. We need to remember and not to forget any of you veterans and the sacrifices you made. Today, let us speak in solidarity, a voice that resonates well beyond the grounds, and a voice that will speak to the hearts of those who simply do not understand, or worse, takes this country for granted. Today, I ask you to not only remember Pearl Harbor, but also to think of the Sons of Liberty at Lexington, and to remember those who paid the price of freedom at Gettysburg, Belleau, Guadalcanal, the Battle of Ocean Reservoir, and the Tent Offensive. To remember the 241 Marines killed in Beirut, those that were left at Benghazi, and yes, the 2,996 men and women who were killed on September 11th, 2001. We need to remember and never forget. Today we continue to pray to our Lord our God to protect our servicemen and women, both here and abroad. And when we see a veteran, please, please thank them. Remember them. And our first responders, many of those who are veterans themselves. Today we will remember and never forget that this country is the greatest country there is, and be thankful. I am. Thank you for coming today, and may God bless America.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Sunday morning, 10:48 a.m., December 7th, 1941. The Imperial Navy, the country of Japan, just attacked and bombed the base at Pearl Harbor. It was a surprise, but it happened. Take a moment and think about that. The captain said earlier that we will be prepared in the future, and God knows we are. Thank you to the senior executives in the Department of Defense, and the senior officers we have, because we have a safe country. We're going to have a 21-gun salute. That's a warning to those who may have hearing problems or weak hearts, PTSD. Ladies and gentlemen, response. Mr. Bugle. Thank you. Please be seated. To be 100% sure, do we have any Pearl Harbor survivors with us today? Could you let me know?
There's one right there.
Representing the ladies and gentlemen that fought during World War II, we do have a World War II combat veteran. His name is Eugene Pritchard, and he will ring the bell in honor of all of those from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the wars in the sandbox, and everything else. Mr. Pritchard, please ring the bell in honor of you and your troops. Thank you, sir, and welcome home. Ready to get back up. This is probably my favorite part of this whole plan, baby. Thank you, gentlemen. If you hear a song that means something to you, could you please rise? Bobby. Oh, I beg your pardon, ladies. The service songs and the hymn. Please.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. The army's on its way, count up the cadence loud and strong.
only one. The only one. Yay! you are the only one here. Congratulations. Doesn't even know the words to the song, but well, he's humming them.
Thank you very much. Our keynote speaker this morning is a man who's been there, done that, get the t-shirt, I'll tell you. He's a Major General of the United States Air Force. Mr. Kelly McGee, Director of Defense, POW, MIA, Accounting Agency. He's the fellow that goes out and finds the guys that, well, he'll tell you. General?
Ladies and gentlemen, particularly distinguished veterans, good morning. I am privileged to share this special event with you, and I thank you for coming to pay tribute to the thousands killed, wounded, and deeply affected by that date that will live in infamy. December 7th, 1941 has been well chronicled, but it always bears commemorating, so we never forget, as Sue pointed out, how service and sacrifice were brought to bear as soon as the first bombs shattered that idyllic Sunday morning. Moored in Pearl Harbor were more than 70 warships, including 8 of the Pacific Fleet's 9 battleships. Hundreds of aircraft were nearby. At 7:55 a.m., the first wave of Japanese fighters and bombers swooped in. Within half an hour, the USS Arizona was a burning hulk, and the Oklahoma, West Virginia, and California were sinking. 342 of the 400 aircraft were either destroyed or damaged. In all, 2,403 Americans lost their lives that day. In a home on a sugarcane plantation in the hillsides a mile away and overlooking Pearl Harbor, my father, then 12 years old, was getting ready for church. He vividly recalls the loud whirring noises of airplanes. He and my grandparents rushed outside and saw, in his words, so many aircraft flying over the pass in the adjacent hills. Their confusion turned to horror as they witnessed the ensuing explosions and destruction in the harbor below. While my father doesn't attribute that memory to his enlisting in the Army 8 years later, I can't help but think it did influence him. He had to overcome a bicycle accident that left him with a slight limp and persevere through, as the veterans know, a very rigorous basic training. But he became an infantry soldier and left for the Korean War in December 1950. He later served 2 combat tours in Vietnam and proudly retired as a Master Sergeant after a 28-year career. Like millions of others, he dutifully answered our nation's call to arms. Each December 7th, like today, we mourn and honor the passing of innocent Americans, many who responded with bravery and fortitude. 15 sailors and 1 Marine were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. 11 posthumously for their actions that fateful day. I could easily speak this morning of their feats of heroism, but instead I'd like to talk about 3 stories of 4 sailors, heroes in their own right. The first, Seaman's Second Class Rainer Aguirre, grew up just 43 miles away in San Gabriel. In 2002, his nephew, Frank Andrade, wrote a book about his uncle entitled Rainer Didn't Come Home. His immediate family called him Ner. Frank described his uncle as a typical 23-year-old with hopes and dreams who loved life, his family, and his country. He was an avid surfer, riding his longboard painted in his Alhambra High School's blue and gold colors. Ner also played football. In fact, the local town newspaper, El Chimoso, described him as a defensive standout and a great receiver, playing the entire 60 minutes of football. Frank remembers his uncle after graduating from high school in 1938, doing isometric exercises, chin-ups and push-ups in preparation for joining the Navy. He said his uncle joined for many of the same reasons that prompted other young men to enlist: a job, a chance for adventure, advancement, and travel. In a letter to his sister Marina in July of 1941, Ner wrote this: "Dear sis, how are you and the rest of the folks? I'm okay. I certainly hope you're okay too. While I'm still here at the station in San Diego, I hear that a bunch of us will be going out pretty soon. And there are always a lot of rumors going on around here. There are a bunch of guys who went already, and I am probably next. I think I will be scared when I go, but I will be okay. Say hello to Mom when you see her. I wrote her twice already. Gee, I sure hope she's okay and doesn't worry too much. So long, sis, and I'll be seeing you, Ner." He wrote many more letters to Marina, but in his final letter on November 1st, 1941, he said this: "Gee, sis, I want to thank you for the swell cookies that you sent. I get them Navy Day, October 27th. They sure were good, even though I only ate 3 of them. Those doggone guys stamped me and ate all of them. I barely had the package open when, boom, they were all gone. Boy, what a bunch of wimpies." Thanks again, sis. We're still here in Pearl Harbor, still hoping to go back soon. I wrote Mom and told her that I couldn't tell her when we were going back. You know how it is. I sure wish I could let you folks know. My regards and love to all. So long, sis, Ner." Esther Serrano was Ner's girlfriend. In this very pertinent section of his book, Frank Andrade said this: "Much is told of mothers and wives of GIs lost in World War II, but little is mentioned of the sweethearts left behind. They too suffered, but without a gold star to hang in their window, just one to hang in their hearts, to remain there forever, symbolic of a life that might have been. Our entire family loved Esther dearly. She too was a shining star." On board the USS Arizona on December 7th, Ner, as we all know, would never receive more cookies.